ثلاثة اثنان واحد.
This is my favorite time of the year.
Sunnah followers.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Please join us for a new program, Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, brought to you by Dr. Ali. Reflections on Ramadan, followed by questions. Please join us Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on Sunnah Followers, streaming on all major platforms. Channel Sunnah Followers.
To continue with our program. So I wanted to kind of just take an opportunity to talk about some brief, very, very brief ayat as they relate to, to applications. So we want to come out of this Ramadan with applications, right? We want to do something that will benefit us, inshallah, in the year to come or in the months to come, to show that we are implementing the Quran. So among the ayat that are very touching to me. Last week we talked about the importance of unity and being kind to one another. Is that correct? If anybody could remind me.
Yes.
Okay. So we saw the importance of this very important manner. Now, today I want to talk about something that I get a lot, especially a lot of people are frequently talking about, that we're not finding blessing in our life, and we're finding things are so hard for us, and so this is an ayah that we talked about in the past. And this is from Surah Saba, Surah number 34, where Allah Azza wa Jal, He talks about the family of Dawood alayhi salam, the Prophet Dawood and his son Sulaiman. And the description is extremely interesting, subhanallah, to me. When he actually, it is in, if I'm not mistaken, yes, it's in Surah Saba, and I'm going to give you the exact ayah so you can open it up and go along with me.
Okay.
So the ayah that I am most focused on is ayah number 13. So the surah is number 34 and the ayah is number 13. اعملوا آل داود شكرا وقليل من عبادي الشكور. So this is going to be one of the focuses we're going to talk about today. And then there's another part of this exact same surah and the exact same story that I want to talk about, which is ayah number 10. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ مِنَّا فَضْلًا يَا جِبَالُ أَوِّبِي مَعَهُ وَالطَّيْرَ وَأَلَنَّا لَهُ الْحَدِيدَ. So let's begin with this one first. That Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, and we indeed gave to Dawood, the king, prophet David, minna fadla, that we gave him from our bounty. O mountains, recite along with him, and the birds. And thereafter we made iron pliable to him. So what was this is something that I want you to visualize, because it's a very, very powerful image that I wish I could show it to you, but I want you to imagine it, and I think that will be very powerful in of itself. Imagine Dawood alayhi salam, okay, that he is sitting outside. Imagine that he's sitting on a balcony or sitting on a patio or sitting on the grass, okay, and he is making dhikr. He is remembering Allah Azza wa Jal. So as he's remembering Allah, with audibly, he's making his dhikr with voice, that the mountains and the birds are making dhikr with him. So the entire scene comes to life. There's movement from all of this, okay, and all of them have joined in with him. And so, what is the relationship now between Dawood alayhi salam making dhikr and iron becoming pliable to him? And when you say pliable, it means that iron, when Dawood alayhi salam would touch iron, it would become like dough in his hands, like bread dough, and that he could mold it in any way that he wanted. So, what is the relationship between the remembrance of Allah and this ability that he had to mold iron?
He was so in tune with Allah that he just meshed right in with the
Okay.
environment, and
Yes.
everything just submitted themselves as he did, and they just
Very
all
beautiful.
did it together. Subhanallah.
Excellent. So when you submit to Allah, Allah Azza wa Jal, He causes elements of His creation to submit to you. Very, very beautiful observation, Sister Anisa, mashallah. So again, I'll say that again so that you can write it or you can remember it. When you submit to Allah, Allah causes elements of His creation to submit to you. Okay? Specifically, from the created elements of this world, that they submit to you. What else?
Total unity. No
Okay?
discrepancy. No one
Beautiful.
says, I'm not going to do this. No, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. They all were in unison. Just one
Alhamdulillah.
body.
You guys are going to let Sister Anisa take all the reward today, huh? Nobody wants it. Any other thoughts from anybody? One of the greatest messages that I want you to take from this, again, as an application, okay? Because when we read these ayat, when we read the Quran, we want to look for the application, okay? What am I going to do with this ayah? And this is one of the reasons I'm choosing this ayah, because this is an ayah that a lot of times when we read over it, it's almost like we read over it like this is something historical. This is Allah telling us something that happened to the people before. And we sort of drop in our search for applications. Okay, so we sort of kind of sit back and almost like we're watching something right now. We're just kind of seeing this beautiful event happening. We're hearing about these miraculous, actions, and as a result, we stop thinking about, okay, is there an application here? And there is a huge application here. And there's an application here that we see elsewhere. We see this in the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what is that application? What can I learn from this ayah that I can start doing in my life now?
Geechee, Layla.
I'm sorry?
I'm calling on my peers. Geechee, Layla.
Ah.
Where you guys at?
I think to me, it's if you want Allah to make something happen for you or make something easier for you, then start to obey Him, start to submit to Him. Because as you said earlier, if we submit to Allah, He'll have stuff submit to us. So
Good. But remember what we're talking about now. Again, imagine this grand image, okay? What is he doing? He's not necessarily, I mean, it is in some ways, it is certainly, we can say that it's an act of submission, but it is more than that.
Mm.
What is he doing that we don't do?
He's remembering Allah.
He is remembering Allah. He's taking time. So now remember, this is not any particular person, not an average person. This is not a prophet alone. This is a prophet and a king. Okay? So he had two major jobs. Number one, that he had the job of being a king. Okay? So he was responsible for for his people. Okay? The day-to-day activities of running a kingdom. Okay, dealing and making sure that justice is being applied. So what the kings used to do, they used to hold court, and people would come with their grievances, and they would speak to the king, and they would say, this happened, and they would hope for some sort of resolution to their problems. So this is a human being who was holding court, and solving people's problems, attending to the needs of his people, attending to the defense of his kingdom, attending to the, making sure that sufficient food was available for his people. Surah 34, ayah number 10 right now, Gichi. And so that's part of his work. The other part of his work was that he was somebody who was also taking care of the message. So Allah sent him as also a prophet. So he wasn't just simply taking care of the day-to-day operations of the kingdom, but he also was involved in leading his people spiritually. This is a lot of work. And despite all of this responsibility, he was doing what?
He was relying upon
Despite
Allah.
all of this,
Go ahead, Layla.
sorry. This is Brother Abdullah.
Oh, go ahead,
Yes,
brother.
Brother Abdullah. Go ahead, man.
All right. Yeah, despite all of the stress that he was undergoing as far as being a king, dealing with the trials and tribulations of the people, and being a prophet and dispensing the message of Allah to his people, he took the time out and he broke away from that life to sit down and to meditate and connect with his creator, which a lot of us
Exactly.
today, we allow our jobs, our families to overcome us and to take us away from the remembrance of Allah. But this individual had far more than what we have to deal with.
Yes.
And he took the time out to meditate and to connect with his creator.
Absolutely. So this is perfect. This is exactly the principle that I want you guys to take from it, is that despite him being so much busier than us, okay, we say that we're busy, but we're busy with a lot of nonsense. And so he really was busy with obligations that he had for his people, and we're not even going to talk about his family. He had a very big family. And so on top of it, so he's a king, he's a prophet. He also is a family man who has all these responsibilities, to his family. Despite all of that, he's taking the time to sit and remember Allah Azza wa Jal. And remember Allah, not like what we do, that we're remembering Allah in the midst of doing things. He did that as well. But he took some dedicated time to sit out and to allow to remember Allah in this case. Because when you sit down, if you were to go outside right now, okay, for 15 minutes, I'm not going to tell you more than that, 15 minutes. 15 minutes, okay, that you go outside and you see the grandeur of the sky, okay, that Allah multiple times in the Quran, he asks us to marvel at the sky and to look at the sky and to see if you can find any defect or any default, any crack in it or anything like that. To marvel at the sky, marvel at the clouds, marvel at the sun, marvel at the moon, marvel at the stars, marvel at the trees, marvel at the land as it spreads out in front of you. Marvel, all of these things that are the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. So when you say Allahu Akbar, that Allah is greater, tell me, when you say it in that setting, is it going to be different than if I'm saying Allahu Akbar when I'm sitting in my house, in my living room, with the TV on in the background and people are talking? It's going to be so much different, right? You're going to feel it's going to go so much deeper into you. It's going to saturate into your cells, that you are seeing this, and you really will feel at that moment that you are this very small piece in this grand, setup that's in front of you. Whereas when we're in our homes, we don't feel like we're a small piece. We feel like we're the major piece, and so it changes that perspective quite a bit. And so this is the importance of living the remembrance of Allah. Living the remembrance of Allah. That not only are we saying these words, but these words they enter into us and they interact with us. So when I'm saying Subhanallah, how perfect is Allah above all that they associate with Him, and I'm looking at the sky and I'm looking at the creation, again, it's going to be different. That's going to resonate with me on such a deep level. When I'm saying Alhamdulillah, and I'm saying Alhamdulillah, and I'm thinking about all the blessings that Allah has given to me, this air that I'm breathing, this fresh air that I'm outside breathing, these trees that Allah created, isn't it amazing? Isn't it something that is a sign for people that we exhale carbon dioxide and we require oxygen in order to live? And yet Allah put on this earth another creation that requires carbon dioxide to live, and it releases oxygen for us, subhanallah. So this is the amazing thing that's out there, that you see, like everything is working hand in hand. It's in perfection. Allah puts on this earth what we needed. He put everything in a specific percentage. Right now, if you familiar with like the chemistry of the air that we breathe, if the chemistry of the air we breathe is changed by 1%, it would not be habitable. People would die. If certain things were missing in the world that we live in, life couldn't go on. So the balance of life in this world is so, sensitive. And Allah has allowed us to live all these, thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years that we're living on this earth. And subhanAllah, how things are going. So again, it changes. And that is what Dawood did. So he took the time to regain perspective. He took the time to regain perspective. If you feel like your life is falling apart and you go outside and you spend this time remembering Allah Azza wa Jal, as you look about all of the blessing that Allah has put for us, it makes it very hard to be ungrateful, right?
Yeah.
It makes it very hard to, forget Allah Azza wa Jal. It makes it very hard to lose the perspective, to lose our way. And this is what he was doing. And so when you do that, when Allah becomes the priority and he becomes number one in your life, that is when you see miracles start to happen. That is when you start to see that things are happening in your life that defy, reason. And this is what you see, that this miracle, that's why Allah said, وَأَلَنَّ لَهُ الْحَدِيدِ. It came after that. So first he went out and he started making the dhikr. And then Allah Azza wa Jal, because of the continuation of this practice, then the birds joined in, the mountains joined in, the nature joined in with him. And after that, Allah gave him the blessing or the miracle of being able to mold iron. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Any questions on that? And so this is something that it's something we don't do. Okay, we look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Jibreel first came to him, all right, when Jibreel first came to him, he, what was he doing? He was going out for long periods of time and meditating on, and reflecting upon the creation. Reflecting, maybe a better word than meditating, because meditating is often associated with the, other religions like Buddhism and so forth. So reflecting, sitting outside and reflecting upon the beauty of a creation. Okay, and so in that time, because of this, it's like Allah prepared his soul, okay, to be ready to accept the message. Now, here's an interesting aside that I wanted to share with you, that I don't know if you've heard this before. But again, one of the things I like to do is, we take the benefit of the knowledge that we have now, some of the scientific knowledge that we have, and we try to, apply it back onto the Quran sometimes, and the Hadith, and sometimes it's very interesting because there's stuff that we never really thought about. Then when you have like some of this scientific knowledge, you start to say, "Wow, this is very interesting." So there is a lot of, you probably have seen this probably on your social media at one time or another, that hugging somebody for 20 minutes, a nice strong hug for 20 seconds. Apologies, not 20 minutes. 20 seconds, it causes the release of oxytocin, which is kind of like the bonding hormone. It's a happy bonding hormone. So when you try it, if you haven't tried it, go and hug your somebody in your family for 20 seconds, a nice deep hug. And what it does is it releases this happy hormone. And so it's something that we could all benefit from. This is one of the principles that we have come. The other thing that kind of happens is that if you have a tight hug from somebody, somebody that comes and really really gives you a nice squeeze when they're hugging you, it's just convey. What does it convey to you? I won't tell you what it conveys to me. What does it convey to you? How do you feel?
warmth, compassion,
Right. So you
security.
feel
He was
good, right?
security.
You feel affection. Okay. You feel so just. It might hurt a little bit, if they're squeezed too hard, but you don't mind the pain because you know that this person loves you and you feel loved, you feel cared for, you feel that warmth that they have. It just makes you feel happy, right?
Mhm.
And so, subhanallah, when we learn about the beginning of the revelation, that Jibril, he came to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ was reflecting on the creation of Allah at night. He's all alone, nobody around. And if you've ever been in a situation like that, if you've ever been camping or kind of out in nature, and you've been out by yourself for maybe hours, and you're just kind of in tune with like the sounds of nature and everything. It can be very, very frightening if a human being comes into that uh, moment. And so uh, the Prophet ﷺ is sitting in this peaceful environment, and Jibril comes to him. And so Jibril, of course, being an angel, it's already something, a little shocking to see, And so Jibril comes to him, and he tells him, he pushes him up against the wall, and he says to him, recite or read. And the Prophet ﷺ says to him, but I don't know how to read. And so what does Jibril do after that in the narrations? What do you guys remember?
He said, read more sternly.
After he says that, what does he do?
In the name of your Lord who created.
No. This is in the final part. But so he says to him, read. The Prophet ﷺ says, I can't read. What does he do? There's an action before he tells him to say, read again.
Oh.
He
He squeezes him. Okay, he squeezes him, and so a lot of times, so this is one of those things that we read, and we just kind of like, we just sort of like go over it. We don't even think about it, right? Okay, you might say, well, I wonder why he squeezed him. What was the point of that? And we go on. So he squeezes him, and he says, "Read." I can't read. He squeezes him again. Then he says, "Recite." He said, "In the name of your Lord." Right. So subhanallah, when you think about it, you remember that time is relative to us. Okay, as human beings, we see time in a linear scale. Time doesn't exist to Allah Azza wa Jal, okay, and time doesn't exist to anything that Allah takes out of that situation. And so the angels like Jibreel, okay, who are you know perpetual in the sense that their lives are so very long, and someone like Jibril who has access, Allah Azza wa Jal tells him so many things, so he knows a lot of things. So Jibril knew the Prophet ﷺ. He knew who he is, and he knew also the relationship that they would have. Okay, so can you imagine right now if you were Jibril and you're seeing the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ for the first time in the linear arrangement of time. You're looking at him. He doesn't know you, but you know him, and you know not only that you know him, but you know that you are going to be very close, okay, and that you love him so much because Jibreel loved the Prophet ﷺ, and who wouldn't love the Prophet ﷺ? Everybody loved him, and so Jibreel has this connection to him. So imagine right now that you are seeing somebody, okay, that you love very very much, and that person doesn't know you, okay, yet, but you love him and you see that he's scared. What would you do to him? What would you do to that person that you love so much to take away the fear?
Hug them.
You would
Comfort
hug
them.
them. You would hug them. And so Jibreel alayhi salam, when he says the squeezing, he's hugging him. He's hugging him and he's giving him, telling him it's gonna be okay. Like don't worry. Like we're gonna be fine. Subhanallah. And that's the context that we're missing. We don't get this context from just reading it, in this very plain, without stopping to reflect upon it, subhanallah. And so when you see it in this light, and you see now that what is happening is Jibril is actually hugging him out of love, and like he wants to tell him, don't be scared. Like you and I, we're gonna be really good friends. Inshallah, don't worry. inshallah, I know how this story ends. You're going to be so okay, right? And I know that you're scared. So it's almost like a child, right? That you're trying to comfort a child that doesn't know, okay, that everything's going to be fine. Okay, so we don't have that knowledge like Jibril did, because Jibril took that, Allah gave him that knowledge. But it changes, the way that, so this is, again, the benefit of kind of reflecting upon this. And so I hope that, inshallah, that's something that encourages you to hug the people that you love, number one, more often. And secondly, I hope that it changes maybe the way that you see the story of the revelation, and some of the times these elements of love that we don't talk a lot about, and just see how evident it was in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So back to what we were talking about is this issue of remembering Allah Azza wa Jalla. And so when you remember Allah in this kind of like, you take the time out of your day and you try to reconnect with the creation of Allah, with that which is outside of your home, outside of your life, what I'm saying, and you get into that, it has a transformative effect on you. And that's something that I would like you to consider. Yes, Gichi, please go ahead.
No, it's very interesting, the comparisons. If we look at Dawood alayhi salam, and we also draw to the comparison with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Jibril, and we look at the two main components that you brought up. We look at Dawood alayhi salam, and we look at the surah of Al-Hadid. Am I saying
Al-Hadid.
Okay. And what it represents when it's being molded, and we look at steel and how many times steel has to be hit, during the process of that being formed into something we know later on that we as, mankind, what the use of that is going to be. It may be ugly in the beginning.
Yes.
We may be tried, and we may be hit many times and brought down many times, but Allah is consistently hitting us, because at the end, the buffering, the shining is out of this world. We know exactly how we will look, how we will become at the end. And we look at the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the example that you brought forward of the angel Jibril coming to him, and he was scared, he was scared, and the observation, he was scared, and the direct orders was to tell him, hey, read. And many people, he wasn't a person that was, he a person that could read, but he looked at his, incapabilities. And Jibril was telling him, look, I want you to read in the name of your Lord. This is the order, and I believe in you, and this is what it is, because you have a mission to complete. And at the end, sometimes it's like we doubt ourselves in our situations, in our hardships, not understanding at the moment, like we plan, but Allah plans, and Allah knows finally what's going to happen. But in our incapabilities and not knowing the end result, it is through that Jibril, knowing that he's going to the angel Jibril came to teach him and be a teacher, and consistently, bring him, the assurance, and bring him Allah's divine wisdom, as far as him being the prophet and the messenger. Like, hey, I got you. This is what your Lord wants you to do. I understand that you're a human being. You know what I'm saying? You're a human being. And sometimes within ourselves, we have those doubts and insecurities, but we don't stay focused on the message and what we're about to bring forth. And sometimes we do need outside, we didn't need that outside buffering, that steel, to like really keep us reminded, hey, this is the end product, but Allah knows the end product. So I just felt like those two things when you reflected, because of course, Quran, every time you read it, you get a whole new reflection, a whole new insight of Allah's word, which is Alhamdulillah. And I just was like, wow, that's a beautiful, correlation between those two, that you pick those two lessons, and you yourself can, derive, lessons from the Prophet Muhammad, his interaction with the angel Jibril, and then the interaction with David, the prophet David, and him having this responsibility and taking this time out, extracting himself from the world and bringing that back into giving his time to his Lord. And the same thing also happening with this great other prophet, the seal, and his interaction between his teacher and the final message coming from his teacher and him boosting within that confidence. So that's two lessons that I'm drawing from. That's like, wow, I'm sorry. That's just what I get from it. I'm just
No,
like,
don't be sorry at all. No, that's beautiful reflections, mashallah. Very beautiful, mashallah. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So the only thing I wanted to add to that was when we come to the very end of this, the second part that I had mentioned to you. So we come to ayah number 13, and so the portion that I want you to kind of reflect on is Allah's statement, "I'malu ala Dawood shukra." So the ayah begins, "يعملون له ما يشاء من محاريب وتماثيل وجفان كالجواب وقدور الراسيات اعملوا آل داود شكرا وقليل من عبادي الشكور." So he begins the ayah by talking about some of the blessings that he gave to Sulaiman, so the son of David, alayhi salam. And then he says, act with thankfulness, or act with gratitude, O family of David, for indeed few of my servants are truly thankful. So what does that mean, act with gratitude? Because a lot of people, they think that gratitude is simply saying thank you.
I would say like within your every, interactions on a daily basis and everything you do and everything you say, just being, we think everything is mouth service, but it's truly through our actions we can give off gratitude, that
Yes.
sometimes people don't even pick up that it's an act of gratitude.
Yes. So it's very, very important. Anybody else have any thoughts that want to add?
I'll probably say this. The human being really thrives on a high. We take herbs, we do wine, we do drugs to get high. We're trying to get to that feeling where we can actually be in gratitude to Allah. So we want to blend in, but we don't know how. And the natural way of doing it is just submitting our wills to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to get that natural high, to know that Allah is the one we need to have all gratitude to for at all times. SubhanAllah.
Very nice. Anybody else?
Well, just to build on to what they both stated, DT was talking about action. And that's basically what I want to say. Instead of telling Allah that we are gracious and we appreciate what has been done for us, it's actually showing him through our actions in terms of like doing things in our everyday life when we know nobody else sees us but Allah.
Perfect.
It could be something like picking up a stick out the road, and we know this is my gratitude, or pulling an animal from harm, or whatever the case might be. It's doing these things with the idea that only Allah sees us and nobody else do. Those actions will show a more powerful level of gratitude than just through our tongue.
MashaAllah. Beautiful, beautiful, Brother Daryl. Jazakallahu khair. So here's the thing. I would say, I'm going to add on to Brother Abdullah's statement here, where he's focusing on the word action, and that's what I want you to focus on, which is turning our gratitude into an act rather than just simply a statement. So it is a statement, but it also has to be an act. What is the act? Okay, to give you an overall understanding of that, it is to use that which Allah has given you in a manner which is pleasing to Him, with the intention of being thankful. Okay, so what Brother Abdullah is saying is perfect. He's saying, okay, right now I see something harmful in the road, okay, and I go and I remove it. And don't ever take this action very lightly, because we have an authentic hadith in Sahih Muslim in which there was, and I think we've all probably at some point or another, you've experienced something like this, that you might be driving down, typically a residential road, and maybe some guy or some family, they have a big tree in their front yard, and part of the tree is hanging into the road, okay? And maybe they're not being very active in trimming it or something like that, or maybe it's a public road and the local government isn't doing anything about it, and so people kind of have to dodge around it. They have to change their path in order to not be not to run into that branch, or not to have the branch scrape over their car or what have you. And so the Prophet ﷺ tells us that I saw a man enjoying himself in Jannah primarily because he saw a branch like that was disturbing people, and he went and he cut it down. So he took time to be useful to other people. And he said, you know what, this is bothering a lot of people. Let me go, since I have the physical capability, let me go and cut it down. Now, of course, you shouldn't go into someone else's yard. I'm not encouraging you to trespass. But if you see something like that, maybe you can go. And so maybe the owner of that property is an old person, and he says, I really want to, but I don't have the money to do it. And then you can offer to do it, which then you are caring for a neighbor, and as well as taking care of removing something harmful. So the concept of removing something harmful from the road is very expansive, and we often see that, but a lot of times we don't stop to take advantage of it. But the idea here is I'm doing this to show my gratitude to Allah, because Allah gave me physical health. And so because of my physical health, I'm going to go and assist my neighbor when I see her coming home, that she has a lot of groceries. I'm going to pick them up, okay, for her. As an example, this is something that happened to me recently, that I saw an older lady who was coming home, and she had groceries with her, and my son was walking around. I said, hey, go help her. She has groceries, go help. And so this is, again, even though I'm not physically doing it, I'm teaching the younger generation to do that. And she actually came and she said, I see that you're teaching your son to be a gentleman, is what she said to me. And so again, they will remember that. People remember that, when those Muslims lived here, I remember how they used to always help. When they left, it kind of left a hole, in this neighborhood or in this complex or what have you. People will recognize that you were about doing good. And the idea is I'm doing that with the intention. So remember, the intention here is key. When we talk about taqwa, okay, what is taqwa? So taqwa, a lot of times we see this word translated in funny ways. They say God consciousness. Some people say fearing God and so forth. But if you want to really understand taqwa is very simple. It means to obey Allah with an intention, with a specific intention. So I'm doing what Allah commanded me to do with the intention to protect myself from His punishments. So I am getting up and doing my prayer because I want that prayer to protect me from being punished on the day of judgment. That's taqwa. So that's where the fear aspect comes in. Okay, so those people who say fear Allah, okay, as taqwa, it's close, okay, but the idea is obey Allah with the intention of fear. Can I obey Allah with the intention of thankfulness? Can I say, I'm going to get up and pray right now because I don't want Allah to punish me, but also, how could I not get up and pray when Allah has been so good to me and given me so much to be thankful for? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Can I have two intentions?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, you can. And so this is the thing: is that don't miss out on all this reward. This is 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 for 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so if you get into the habit of doing things to say, "Oh Allah, I'm doing this, wallahi, out of gratitude to you," you can avoid sin out of gratitude to Allah. So you see something that you shouldn't be looking at, a person in the street that you should not be looking at them. Okay, and you turn your eye away from that, or you lower your gaze from that sight. Number one, I want Allah to protect me from the hellfire. Number two, how can I openly disobey Allah when He has given me eyesight? How can I be thankful for these eyes and then use these eyes to disobey Allah. And so this is one of the things that we're missing. So the 2 points that I wanted to, kind of reiterate today is the importance of stopping and taking time out of your day to remember Allah. And number 2, making sure that we consciously are thanking Allah in the actions that we do on a daily basis. And this is two of the greatest lessons we learn from these stories of these great prophets, these prophet kings, and how how Allah elevated them and how Allah blessed them because of these behaviors. And with that, I will leave it if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for that, because like you said, I think reading that particular ayah, I would have just flew past it and not just sit and ponder and think about how many jewels I could have pulled from that, just that one particular ayah. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Alhamdulillah.
And for me, I would want to practice, which I do, but I can do better, making sure that everything I do, that I know Allah is aware of what I'm doing, and I'm doing it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. SubhanAllah.
Alhamdulillah. Making sure that we're aware. Allah is certainly aware of that, but we want to take the time to kind of formalize that intention. And just to share with you a really quick, story, just to kind of give you, sometimes there's a statement from one of, it's actually made by many students of knowledge. They said, I used to sit with Sheikh so-and-so, and even though I really didn't learn anything new from him in terms of he didn't teach me a hadith or a principle I didn't know before, but I learned a lot from watching him. I learned a lot from his manners. And so sometimes we sit with scholars, and this is the thing that, it's very, very valuable, is when you have these interactions with scholars, that you learn from how they do things. Not necessarily, you already know what they're talking about, but you've never seen somebody implement it. And so I remember that once a scholar came to visit where I was living, and I offered to be his transportation. And so I went to pick him up from the hotel where he was staying. And so I was sitting with him, and he got ready, and we were about to leave. So we step outside into the hallway, of the hotel, and close the door, and I see the sheikh stop, and he's like looking down at the ground, and he's just stopped. And so I didn't know what he was doing, and so I was like, did we forget something, sheikh? Do you want me to go back and get something for you from the room? He said, no, I was just formalizing my intention, or I was thinking about my intention. And so I'd never seen somebody do that. So I said, how often do you do that? He said, wallahi, I try to do this before I start, an act. And so he was about to teach. And so he was thinking about the intention he had before he sat down to teach. Okay? Because again, if we don't do that, the shaitan will come and give it to you. The shaitan will come in front of you and say, oh, here you are, you're talking, and look at how people are looking at you. They're hanging on to every word that you're saying. They're so enamored by you. I think you're probably so much. I don't even know why they listen to so and so and so and so, because I can clearly see that I'm connecting to these people on a very deep level, and I'm very engaged with them. So all of a sudden, this all becomes about you. Okay, it becomes urge, that you become pleased with yourself, or you become arrogant, and so forth. And then the deed, what you're doing for the sake of Allah, is lost. But if you remember right when you stand up that I am doing this for the sake of Allah, I'm doing this for the pleasure of Allah, don't matter what people, if the people are engaged or they're not engaged, if people are happy or they're not whatever, you're doing it for the sake of Allah. You're not doing it for the sake of the people. So he reminded me, he said, I try to remember my intention before I do the act, during the act, and after the act. And so this is an example of, can we apply that same principle to thankfulness, that I want to be thankful to Allah before the act, during the act, and after the act is over. And with that, I'm going to let you guys go, because I'm going to get ready. It's getting close to, I have to finish some things before the iftar. I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla, inshallah, to have made this brief session beneficial to you, and I ask you, inshallah, to remember me and my family and all the believers, especially the believers who are suffering in Palestine and Sudan and Syria and China, the Uyghur people, and all the people who are suffering and oppressed in the world today, not to forget to make dua, to stop and make sure that you pour your heart into your dua for these people who are in need. Allahumma ameen. وجزاكم الله خير سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
I mean, brother.